Hello and welcome to our next episode of the live conversation series with African film professionals on CINIDB Africa. My name is Jacqueline Ncia and I am the project manager of the platform. Together with my wonderful team, we curate and update the information on a regular basis. CINIDB in its finished state will be a multilingual networking and information platform for film professionals in and of Africa. The platform will host information on everything African film related, such as a film professional directory, information about film education, film festivals, and markets. We have hundreds of professionals already registered, and we invite you to register as well. This conversation series is part of CINIDB aim to promote exchange between film professionals. We will keep you informed on the upcoming ones, so do please follow us on our social media platforms, such as Facebook and Twitter, and as soon as our Instagram page works again, also on Instagram. You'll find the links underneath this video. Today's conversation is on Nigeria, activism and film, LGBTQI, and is moderated by the Nigerian film critic, Franklin Ugobude. This conversation is pre-recorded and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much.
Hi guys, welcome to this conversation. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Franklin Ugobude and I'm a film critic living in Lagos, Nigeria. Today I am having a conversation with some very exciting people. Over the past few years, we have actually seen that there have been a few productions that just talk about being queer in Nigeria and what it is like basically. And today I am joined by some of the creators and some of the filmmakers that have been in charge of this project and have sort of brought it to light and brought it to fruition. For the next couple of minutes, I will be talking to Uyaiedu, I'm talking to Asurf, I'll be talking to Pamela about their experiences as filmmakers and how film has just for them been, and basically how film cuts into activism for them. So I'd allow them do like introductions and we can just dive right into it. So I'll start off with Uyaiedu, who is to my right here.
Okay, hi. My name is Uyaiedu Ikpe-Etim. I'm a filmmaker and a screenwriter. I'm a feminist filmmaker. I like to specify that I'm a feminist filmmaker because there's a difference. So yeah,
nice to meet you.
Yes,
so we can
thank you.
Asurf. Asurf, you can introduce yourself now.
Hi everyone, my name is Oluseyi. I'm a filmmaker, a content developer from Lagos, Nigeria as well.
Nice to meet you, Asurf. And now we can go to Pamela.
A mic is mute.
Yeah, Pamela, you're muted.
I can't unmute myself.
Okay, I think you're muted now.
We can hear you now. We can hear you now, Pamela.
I don't know.
Okay. Yeah. So I think we're just going to dive right into it, and then go straight to it. So I think the first question, I think at the bottom line of everything, for me is just to ask everybody here their thoughts on being an activist. What do you think about that? Do you think you are an activist? I mean, if you had to answer that.
Ladies first, I guess. But
No.
if I have to take it first, I wouldn't say I'm an activist. Just a regular human that believe in equal rights across board for everybody, and I'm a supporter of positive uh, living. Do you understand? If you find yourself in any space, respect everybody just the same way you expect them to respect you. Whatever works in the progress of the community or the society that you find yourself should be pushed forward, and it should override some of your personal interests, which we all do have. So I try not to say I'm an activist because I am not, but I'm a supporter of anything that is right, at least for all.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, what do you think about that?
Um, honestly, I woke up one day and people are referring to me as an activist, a queer rights activist online. And I'm like, oh, I'm an activist? So I feel like there's once you're part of an oppressed group, there's an expectation on you to be an activist. But I don't think that I'm an activist. I think that I'm a storyteller, right? I'm here, and I hate that we live in a world where we need activists anyway. But I'm here, I'm this person who exists for joy and for love. I don't want to spend my life fighting, and I hope that someday we come to a place in this world where we're not constantly fighting for basic human rights.
Okay, very good to know. So Asurf, you said something that sort of struck a chord. You said something about equal rights, equal treatment. In a saner climate and in a saner world, what does that look like to you?
So luckily for me, I've been able to travel out of my space and get to understand how people do stuff differently from how we do stuff, right? And one thing that I noticed that is common is respecting like everybody to the simplest thing as driving, and when you get to like a T junction, and if you get there first, then you have the first way of drive, and if not, even though it looks like it's open for you, the fact that you meet someone on that spot, you should give way for the first person to go without anybody telling like without you telling anybody. It just looked like it was a norm in that kind of society. But here it is different, and you can't blame anyone for it. It looks like it's a system that we grew up in, and we're just always wishing that things can change. And I want to be part of that change in every, no matter how small, in every little space or every little capacity that I have to influence it. So literally just respecting everybody around you, and understand that the world is not just around yourself only.
Okay, that's something. So yeah, I remember you said something about storytelling. And so I would ask, or speaking as to the same equal treatment that Asurf had mentioned, how does your storytelling, come into it? I mean, for you, I think one of the important things you had said that sort of struck a chord was, you don't want to keep fighting, and I feel like it's something that a lot of people would resonate to. So how does your storytelling in this regard affect or move towards um, a state of equal treatment generally?
So I know that eventually we are going to start to talk about Ife at some point, but like, for example, Ife, what I wanted to do with Ife, right, was, I feel like I said it 1,000,000 times, but was normalized, right? However, I still want to make happy stories of queer people. Stories where queer people do not need to be coming out, or coming out is not their issue, or homophobia is not their issue, right? I met a woman sometime in Abuja, and she's telling me how she lives with her wife, a person she considers her wife, and they've been like that together for years. And I said to her, I want to write stories about women like you in Nigeria. I want to write normal stories about women who are just existing, lesbians who are existing in this country, who are not activists, who probably don't read theory, who probably don't have language for many things, but they love each other, and that love matters. So yeah, that's the kind of storytelling that I'm particularly interested in.
Okay, that's a brilliant answer. I think my next question sort of cuts across broad, so it's sort of like a general question. And it talked about representation. So I want to know what you think about representation in film. When you compare it to pretty much other mediums. So other mediums in the sense of photography, music, books, art. What do you think the representation is like in movies now, and what's in comparison to the other films? Where do you think we're at right now? Anybody wants to go first? Okay, does Pamela want to go first? Yes. Okay, we can try Uyaiedu or Asurf. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I think Uyaiedu can go on because I have to jump out of the car. So one second.
I thought that Pamela was back. She is, right?
Yeah, I can see her, but her mic is muted.
Okay. So just to be sure that I understand you correctly, are you asking what I think about representation in film as compared to other forms of art?
Basically, so it's more or less like so when you look at filmmaking as a tool for awareness, and filmmaking as a tool for telling stories and representation, how do you think of it? How would you compare it to other representation in other mediums, like literature or art or photography, or even music right now?
So I might be biased, right? But okay, first of all, there's a story that I like to tell. So I used to belong to this book club, and we read Under the Udala Trees, right? And we came back to talk about it. So you know how book clubs go. Everyone talks about the book, blah, blah, blah. And so this heterosexual man who was part of the book club started to talk about Under the Udala Trees. And I asked him, what's the book about? And he said, oh, it's about this girl who started, who developed attraction for women because all the men in her village had gone to war. I said, really? That's what you got out of that book? I don't know if I'm sure you've read the book, Frank.
And
that was, yes, and that was very interesting for me because Under the Udala Trees, to me, is glaringly lesbian, right? This is very clear lesbian love. But this man had somehow interpreted this book to mean that this girl was now attracted to other women because there were no men in her village. And so that's one example, right? And secondly, well, I'm thinking about photography now. it's very easy to put in two men together, intimate, two women, and I feel like people would come and say, "Oh, nice, beautiful art," and all of that. I think that with film, right? And maybe I'm wrong, but I think that with film, it's so clear. There are no questions asked. Are these two people kissing? Are they in love? Are they spending their lives together? It's glaring, right? In spite of the fact that, yes, because it's art, people would take it in different ways. The story that is being, the director or the writer is trying to convey is usually very clear. So I usually favor representation in film because there's no argument about it. When the trailer for Ife came out, it was so clear. These two women are in love, and Nigerians were like, "Oh, lesbian film," right? Even if these things had been in literature, they've seen pictures of it, all of that, nobody was turning their noses up. I'm like, "Oh, just art. Oh, they're just talking, writing story, right?" If you're not so passionate about reading, or if reading is not your thing, right? But with film, I feel like it's so glaring, yeah, and that's why it's so important. That's why representation in film is so important for people to see themselves and for other people to see what other kinds of people there are in the world. Do you see what I mean? So yeah, that's, I think.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. Asurf, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, just in addition to what I just shared, I'll use Nollywood as a case study, right? As a storyteller, when you're developing a story, the first thing you see is yourself, and no matter how much we try to avoid it, we end up imbibing a bit of us or a lot of a big of us, right? A big part of us in our storytelling, right? If I have to do a faith-based content, right, and if I'm a Christian, it just make a lot of sense to do a Christian film as opposed to doing a Muslim film. Why? Because I'm a Christian and I understand that religion, and I'll be so much honest in telling my faith-based story in that form. So as a filmmaker, it always starts with you, and film being a massive medium, it can be used for a lot of things. If you need to communicate a message, if you need to pass anything out without talking to individuals one by one, I think film is a big tool to explore. So when you now try to represent, if you need to represent a community, I think using film is just so important as you can imagine. So look at Kannywood, for instance. Up until 2017, 2018, when you say Nollywood, the only thing that crossed your mind in terms of Nollywood is the Nigerian cinema classification of Nollywood films. But the truth of the matter is, when you look at the numbers, the Kannywood actually produce more movies than the cinema guys. In fact, the Yoruwood or Yorubawood, as they call it, actually produce more Nollywood movies than the cinema guys until about 2017, when filmmakers started integrating and infusing actors and stories outside Lagos into our cinema movies. Before people started realizing that, oh, okay, so there are amazing actors in the north. There are some great Yoruba actors. Do you get what I mean? So that's how powerful storytelling can be using film and sorry, that's how powerful it can be using film as a form of representation in general.
Okay, those are lovely answers. I think, yeah, so very interesting that you brought Nollywood, because I feel like the next couple of questions would be very in-depth about the Nollywood film industry. And I know you have worked on, both of you have worked on, all of you generally have even worked on film projects that are that go past even just centered on representation and queer representation. So I think the next question would be, what do you think about the current representation in general media and Nollywood to be particular? What are your thoughts on that? I'll go with Asurf, probably because you went, went on the last train of thought from that.
I think it's getting better, to be honest, and I'll give it up for the amazing guys, amazing storyteller within the community, taking on the bold step to come out and tell their stories. The truth of the matter is, Nollywood is massive, but it's individual generated industry. What do I mean? There's no film funding in Nigeria, so every film producer that you see deep in their pockets, use their own money, take loans to tell their own stories. So you can't dictate how they tell their stories. That's fact. And when you look at the way consumers consume content, whatever they see, which again goes back to representation, whatever they see as normal or whatever they see frequently on our movies becomes part of their truth. They accept and believe that, okay, for it to be general, for it to be common in most of Nollywood movie, that means maybe that is fact. And when you look at it in real life, it's actually false. Before now that we have people from the community telling their story and representing, having characters that actually represent people from the community, what you see of representation in Nollywood movie are jokes. People just make jokes out of the character. In fact, you can, when you watch characters that are a representation of the community, they are either used to mock people from the community or just used for commercial purposes. And if you take it back again to our films being individually funded, it is hard for me to go and fight such producer. Do you understand? Because I'm not funding it. And so how can we now fix it? It's by encouraging people from the community to start telling their story, to start using the power of film to better represent people from the community. And I think in the last few years with movies like Ife, Hello High Water, Working with Shadows, and some series from Equality Hub and TS that better represent people from the community, you can tell perspective are changing. People are now coming out to have conversation, like serious conversation. In fact, people that were scared, I don't know what scared people about people's love. Do you understand? But that's the society that we have. But seeing more of this kind of content out there now, at least it's driving conversation in line with representation. And I can just hope that with more coming and with more filmmakers within the community telling their story, owning the balls in their own end, I think it can definitely shape people's perspective towards representation of people within the community.
That's great. Uyaiedu, do you have any further thoughts on that?
At the risk of sounding like a naysayer, I don't think that it's getting better. So here are my thoughts, right? Ife is an independent film, right? It's not a mainstream film. Same as Working with Shadows, and there's one Asurf just mentioned. Anyway, I don't think that that's enough representation. I don't think that that's even close to the representation that minorities in Nigeria should be getting, and even beyond the LGBTQ community. So for example, people who practice African traditional religion, how are they represented, right, in these stories? I don't think that the big players in this thing are really considering everyone that exists in this country, right? They're just telling half of the story. Not even half, maybe a quarter of the story in comparison to all the people that exist in this country, right? No one, and I'm not even saying, oh, but so for example, I have so many examples. So I worked on this script for a person, right? And I put 2 gay characters. And when I say that, don't think that there was anything major, right? These 2 guys, they go the entire film. In fact, when you're watching the film, you can go the entire film thinking that they are close friends, just trying to guess what's going on between these two people. Absolutely nothing happens between them up until the end, where they say to each other they love each other, maybe share a quick kiss, nothing, and they even die, right?
Yeah.
And so I received feedback from the executive producers telling me that these homosexual characters will upset the public. I say, who be this public? Upset who exactly? Now you when they read and they upset. Are you actually speaking? Are you actually speaking for the rest? Yes.
Yeah.
Because you're here reading it through your own prejudice, through your own bias, and you're saying that these two characters will upset the public. Exactly what did they do? I mean, that's a whole other conversation, right? Even if they do something, why you go upset them? But exactly what are you saying, really? And so I don't think that, because for as long as it continues to be independent filmmakers that are making these kinds of films, I don't think that that's progress. Because I want to sit in the cinema and see gay characters. I want to see it on mainstream. I want to see it on big screen.
Mm-hmm.
Do you see what I mean? So I don't think that, I feel like Nigerian filmmakers have an idea of the Nigerians they want to put in film, right?
Yeah.
If it's not this rich family and their kids, or this poor family and that's the only thing. How that one take the representation, right? Even me, just a woman like me and my friends, right? Hustling in this Lagos. I want to see women like that. And I'm not even asking for too much yet too. So I don't think that we're really getting better. But I mean
I think I quite get Uyaie's bias. For me, I just I see every little win as a win, regardless, right? As a filmmaker, at least in the last 2 years, I've seen more than 5, and I'm not kidding you, more than 5 young filmmakers approaching me to say, boss, I want to tell a story that can go to festival. And I noticed that some of the LGBT themed film that has been done as cut across festivals. Would you encourage me to tell a story in that light? So what did I take from that conversation before I even make my recommendation? Is that they've seen something, right? We created something that we wish a lot of people would have seen it. But unfortunately, it doesn't look like we've seen the kind of numbers that we expect to have seen it. But one person is triggered to want to know more, right? The person is not even from the community. And the way it was sounding, or the way most of them were sounding, they weren't sounding like they want to tell the story just to really fight the cause of the community. It's just because they've seen one content in that light that has done well. And just like people used to say to filmmakers before now, because I remember when we were trying to do Hell or High Water, it was a battle. People always think that, if you do this short film, if you be part of this, if you join them as a crew member, that could end your career in Nigeria. And I'm not kidding you. And we did it. It didn't end our career. We're still here living and breathing.
Whoop.
I think he's now encouraging other people to want to consider going there. It might start with just 2-3 people telling the LGBT story, but imagine if that is influencing other filmmakers to want to consider going in. Before they will tell the story, they will also research. They will get to know more. Maybe their fears will they will get to defeat their fears to understand that there's nothing so scary about people as in human being living their life, their own love life, their own choices with life. And I think that's how you get converts. So for me, when I say I think things are getting better, it's the slow win. The fact that people can even publicly have this conversation, right? And they're not from the community. That's what I mean when I said at least things are getting better, and we can just hope that with more filmmakers taking the confidence to come out to want to tell story in that line, we can see a massive adoption in people's opinion and people's perspective towards people of the community.
Okay. Yeah. So I totally get everybody's views, and I get where each and every one of you is coming from. And I just to resound the fact that you said something about how films like this are very very important because they just it's perception. It's what people see and it's what people consume, and so it just helps change or well alter the narrative because it's sort of like this is something that isn't normal, and so the more often you see it, the more it looks, realistic to you. So I think the next question is actually it's for Uyaie, because you said and I hear both of you when you talk about funding. I feel like that's something we're even going to come into because I feel like it's a very very big conversation and it's a very very big topic. But what do you think? How do you think we can get to a place where we're better off with representation? Because I mean, funding aside, because we're going to touch on that pretty much next. Are there any other practical, doable things that you think would take us from point we're doing not so much to we've gotten to a place where it's not the worst, but we're getting there?
Honestly, to be honest, I'm going to be honest and say that I don't know. And I'm saying this because I know you don't want to talk about funding yet, but I don't think that many mainstream filmmakers are necessarily trying to create art. I think that what's more important is the commercial part. And that's not to say that that's a bad thing. I'm just saying that this is their priority. And so they are going to constantly prioritize this homophobic country. So I honestly do not know, right? Asurf, I keep mixing your name up. Is it Asurf or Asurf? Asurf, okay. So Asurf mentioned the young filmmakers who are interested in making these films. And that just made my heart so happy and so full that there are people who want to tell these kinds of stories. But to be honest, I don't know how that's going to happen without the funding. And I'm not even talking about big budgets, because even Ikpe needed to be funded, right? All these films need the funding, and who's going to fund it, right? That's why we're grateful for the NGOs who are committed to telling these stories, international funders who want to see us tell these stories, right? Otherwise, I don't really know how else it will happen, because the people who run this thing, the big players who own the media houses, who own the distribution companies, the people who run these things, I don't think they don't really care for these stories. They don't really care for stories that are not going to take their numbers up.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I won't feel like, and there's this conversation I constantly hear in Nigeria in film when I'm with other filmmakers, right? This thing of, oh, Nigerians are not ready for that kind of story. When I say, oh, this is the story I want to tell, no, Nigerians are not ready. They want to keep watching comedy.
Now, yeah.
And I'm thinking, am I in a bubble? They live for bubble, because the Nigerians where I know want to see these stories, right? The people that I know are interested in good stories. They know the kind of films they want to watch.
Yeah.
Many times filmmakers think of Nigerians as an unintelligent audience, but Nigerians are smart people. Nigerians are intelligent people. They are an intelligent audience. And so that's why when I watch some Nigerian films and I see where they cut corners, I just laugh. I say, Nigerians get sense past this thing where they do. Do you see what I mean? So they want to treat Nigerians like that. And so they keep saying, oh, Nigerians are not ready for that kind of story. Just do a feel-good story. Let's go and laugh. And while those stories also are important, that we cannot keep telling only one kind of story, because it's such a diverse world, such a diverse country, right? And there's so many, and there's something else I always hear that, oh, all the stories have already been told. That's not true. There's so many stories that have not been told, especially from this continent, especially from this country. so many stories that haven't been told yet. But there's that whole thing of, oh, Nigerians are not ready. So honestly, I don't know how else we can do it without proper access to funding, and for this funding to reach the filmmakers and the storytellers. Yeah, reach the right people, because you know as they be for this country. Yeah.
Okay. So that's a good one. Yeah. So which brings us to the next topic of
I wanted to
funding.
add something
Obviously.
to
Yeah.
Uyai's
Sure.
point.
Sure.
Again, you can't take it away from funding. But one thing also that I think can be highlighted is screenwriting, right? One beautiful thing about Ife, you know, we're in a showbiz world, so there is a show and there's the business, right? No matter where you belong, no matter which community that you belong, you can see Ife's teaser, right? And not want to see it. It was because
Absolutely.
it wasn't about the agenda, it was about a love story, right? And there's some eye-catchy can be like all popped in the movie. So I think generally we lack in that area of writing, and that's the foundation of everything. Do you understand? So I think hopefully writers in the community can get funding to recreate or train people in line of writing characters, developing characters that represent people within the community proper. It doesn't even have to be LGBT film. Yo, every character is a winner. Do you understand? Not all characters in every film have to have sex for us to know that okay, you are gay or you are a straight person. They're just characters in the movie. Do you understand? There's a way you can well written, there's a way you can infuse any character in the movie. Like it doesn't even hit the audience about the sexual orientation of the character. And all of this has to do with writing. So I'm hoping that maybe the people within the writing community in the community can get enough funding to train people, or even have a workshop with even existing writer when it comes to developing characters that better represent people in the community.
I think it's very important that you highlight that, because even I generally feel outside even writing for queer people, the Nollywood industry has a general writing problem. And I feel like that is sort of like a bedrock. I feel like I want to say something.
Say something?
But I feel like it's a bedrock for a lot of it's literally the bedrock. Once you fail with the writing for the story, there's bound to be like a lot of K-leg here and there. And I feel like that's one reoccurring thing.
What happened to Frank?
I think we lost Frank.
Okay, I think he'll be back. Uh-oh. We didn't lose Frank in Jesus' name. Uh-oh. Let's see if I can send you.
There's a magic that you did on Ife. Like every writer, we used to tell writers that you don't know what you wrote. You only know what you were writing when you were writing it. I've read a lot of script, and it took me less than an hour to read Ife's script. Averagely, for one script, like a fiction length, will take me up to a month to finish.
I know what you mean.
It kept on just eating me. I was even looking for, okay, where does this really represent the community, or is it's just more of a love story than even trying to push like when some people are writing for the community, they try to make it look like we're pushing agenda, but the first story was just well told. Like it's just a love story between two girls within a confined space.
Yes, because that's what it was, right? And what I always say is that love does not express differently. Love does not show up differently because you're from another gender or another race, right? Love is love, right? So, yes. And that's basically what it is. I wanted to say something about this writing thing though, because I really feel like it's still back to funding. And I feel like Nigerian filmmakers don't want to pay writers.
True.
that's always a struggle. So honestly, I speak to people and I say, oh, this is how much I'm going to charge. And they slash it by more than half. So me, because make you no come be fight, right? I'm always like, oh, I know a writer who can do this job for this amount.
For your budget.
But I can't do it. Do you get? And now you go with that writer. Whatever it is that, because everybody thinks that writing is just writing, it's a random job. Yeah. But you have to put some respect on that job, because I know how much stress I go through just thinking about characters. Yes, thinking about the characters, thinking of creating actual individuals in a story. So I really feel like, as people are saying, we need more writing. It is. It's a major problem.
People say we need more writers, but the truth is we don't need more writers. We just need trained writers, people that actually understand the business of writing. Do you understand? We have so many writers that's why when you watch some of our movies, you see the same actors in other films. You see them carrying characters from other films into another film. And it is normal, and it is common, and people pay less attention to this, because if you give a lazy director any script and they just have to tell it within a confined time, they will just tell it the way they can tell it. But if the writer has done justice to the story, and regardless of who is playing it as an actor, it's quite easier for even a lazy director to transform any actor into that character. And that's why I think what you did with Ife was amazing, and it takes only few, right? You can pay any writer to write any story, even LGBT story. They will still write it in their own understanding. Like, because for them, they just want to know how many weeks, just 2 weeks, I can finish it. You pay, okay, good with the
and what you said. What you said about what you said about the writing workshops, right? That's so important, because many people are talented. Many people know how to write, right? I mean, there's a lot of people who are already writers, probably poetry, fiction, right, who already know how to write, but don't know how to write for film. And so they just bring, I already know how to write, so I'm transferring it here.
I can use Final Draft.
Yes, and I can use Final Draft. I go run out for YouTube, check it on YouTube and all of that. But there's so much more that goes into writing for film, right? Before you even write your first word on your final draft, there's so much that goes into creating your characters, And I've noticed that some of the best shows, some of my favorite shows on Netflix, some of my favorite films, what do they have? They have memorable characters that stick, right? Yeah. And so that's another thing with Nollywood. Everybody's just the same, even with actors and everything. So you see the same character from this film and that film, and the same person.
They're still the same character.
Yes, exactly.
Franklin was trying to avoid the funding part, but it all goes to funding, right? These are solo projects. People are just spending their money to do it. They can't do what they don't know. Do you understand? Yeah. And to hire good writers, it costs money, at least. And nothing so crazy. It's just some decent offer for people that are committing their time to writing. But you see, that decent and reasonable fee is still a lot to some producer, which is the reason why I think maybe also training a lot of people so that we have different classification of writers. And
absolutely.
If you can afford Wicked, you can afford Mayor.
Yes.
If you can afford Naramali, you can afford Lighter.
And it will be based on experience.
Yes. Do you understand? And your expectation is also limited to what you are to the writer that you're getting for your project. So I think something in that line might also help storytelling, pretty much.
Yeah.
So it looks like it's just the two of us
absolutely
like this.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. Frank has not come back.
Is Jan here?
I don't know. They are here. They texted us that we should not leave them.
Yes, okay, Jan is here. Awesome.
And
So we're
Yeah,
just
can
waiting
someone
for
try to
Frank.
reach Frank? Oh, Frank is
I
back.
think Frank is back.
Okay. Sorry. Am I too close? Okay.
You owe us both there.
I do. That's right. Yeah, you were about to say something before. I don't know if I was caught before I left.
Yeah, we went on and said it all.
Yes.
Spoke about writing and funding. So
Oh, you spoke about funding.
sorry.
Right? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's okay. So where do I start from? Do we still talk about funding, or do we move to?
We've already had that conversation.
I think we
Okay.
can move. I think we can move to your next line of.
Okay, that's fine. I think the next question I want to actually talk about would be, or what I want to talk about is something I think Asurf mentioned before, where in Nollywood we make use of like queer characters generally are either negatively portrayed, or they're used to like maybe codify the villain, or like as to make maybe some hilarious statements. I know this happened in Men in Love, the 2010 film with Mona, the late Mona Ikpe. And I know I've seen it in some Yoruba films before, in times past. I'm curious to know what you think about it. And, I feel like we've answered this question in some type of way, but how do we get to the point where things like this do not necessarily happen anymore?
I think it's when we start seeing filmmakers and storytellers within the community telling more stories. Again, it goes back to funding, because the way it works in the Nigerian space when it comes to commercializing films, you have to sell your movie before you make it. You must understand who are your buyers, right? In a population of 200 million, and about 90-something% of them are homophobic.
Yes, that's the problem.
That's something. I think it's a
Oh, am I still here? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, and about 90% of them are homophobic. How do you tell a story of even a love story that centers around LGBT characters and try to want to sell it to such population? It is tough, right? And if I can't sell my movie, it means I cannot spend my money on it, right? And that's why we only hope we get more NGOs that can fund some stories in that line, and can encourage storytellers and filmmakers within the community to tell more, because you can't. There's this one proverb: if you have a colored, a stained ink in a transparent glass of water, and you want to clean it, the best way to do it is just to pour more water. It's going to fill up to the top. You will lose more of the dirt, and over time you will get a clean water in the cup. Do you understand? If we get more storytellers to tell more of their own stories, also you have to understand that it's a big risk them using their own money to tell those stories, because it's hard to sell here. So it will probably be a case where you make the movie and you probably leave it on YouTube for free consumption, because if I don't have to pay to watch it, it means anybody can watch it. Do you understand? Then if that is the route, then who funds such stories? Do you get? So that's where we can run away from funding. At least at this stage, we can only hope that we can get NGOs, people that work within the community to fund some of these amazing stories. The more we have, the more you encourage other people to want to. Once people see that Nigerians, filmmakers always feel like Nigerians, just like what Uyaiedu said before, that Nigerians have a certain type of story that they watch. Nobody in the entire world watch Empire more than Nigerians. And the favorite character on Empire is Jamal. Do you understand? So tell me that, and you tell me that Nigerians can't watch movies with characters that are of LGBT or LGBT character in the movie. If it's well told, people will watch it. But it's hard to push it to cinema at this stage. because when you look at census board and all of those drama and those stuff to cross, it almost look impossible, right? So the most easiest medium would be streaming platform or YouTube, and they are not a platform where anybody wants to spend big money on a movie to exhibit their movie. So unless it's a funded film, then you don't have to worry about commercialization. Then yeah, that would be a route. So they all go back to funding 100% at this stage.
I also think that beyond NGOs and beyond funding, expecting funding from these NGOs, I also think that we all really need to deal with the problem of homophobia in Nigeria. I think that that's the roots of everything that we're saying is the homophobia, just the bare violence. That's what I think is the main problem, because otherwise we will not be having this conversation of our only way to show our films would be to put them on streaming platforms, right? And as Asurf has already pointed out, a good percentage of these filmmakers are homophobes, right? So I think that is where the conversation should start from, right? Educating, just bringing awareness to the fact that queer people are people, right? Queer rights are human rights, and all lives should be valid, all lives should matter, right, in this case. So I really think that beyond even wanting money or anything, we really need to deal with the homophobia in this country, because even if you have money, right, and you're making a film about heterosexual characters, unprovoked, right? Like you mentioned, Frank, in some of these Yoruba films, unprovoked, they'll put in queer characters just to dehumanize them, right? Just to put them in stupid situations and then take them for deliverance. Like, these things are not necessary for your story, but your homophobia just wants to jump out. How can we put these people here and drag them? So that's really the problem, because many of these films can even do without putting. In fact, they beg them, no, put us inside if you're going to make us look like that with the money that you already have, right? So we really, really, really need to address that issue. Homophobia in this country, homophobia in the industry, right? Even internalized homophobia is another conversation altogether, because I'm sure that some of the people who have this money to make these films, some of them are queer, but are struggling with their own sexuality, right? And so they will not touch any film that has queer characters in it with a long pole. They won't, because they don't want anyone to think that they are associated with this, right? So that's really where the conversation should start from, how we can address this homophobia in the industry, in this country as a whole. That's such a big deal, such a big conversation to have, such a big dream, right? But that's our main issue, in my opinion.
Those are solid answers. I think, it's very important that, we talked about briefly with the former questions, we said something about some of these films and being available, which sort of brings me to the next question. I know some of these films are currently not available on mainstream platforms, and I understand that some people want to see themselves be represented on the big screen. So I'm curious to know what you think about that. Generally, how do we get to a point where we're making these films that are made for queer people more mainstream and more available to them? Because some of them just end up maybe on festival routes, and festival routes, on some. They're just not available, readily available to people. So how do we make them more mainstream, and how do we make them more accessible to people who actually want to watch them?
Are you going to go, Asurf? Okay.
Alright, so if I have to take that, I think you have to study films, like normal Nollywood movies, and what sells a normal Nollywood film. In fact, what makes a Nollywood movie mainstream? Number one, the characters that you use, like the actors that you use. Sorry, I have interference in the background, so my audio is going to be bad, so I'll just hold on a little bit. right? Number one thing, I'm talking from a producer point of view now, right? In Nigeria, you have to consider your actors. So, because if I have people believe if you have the A-list actors in the movie, it's easier to sell, right? If you have their favorite actors in the movie, regardless of what the movie is, it's easier for me to want to go and watch the movie. Half of the people go to cinema to watch the movie not because of the story actually, but because of their stars. Do you understand? And so if we can incorporate some of the things that uh, normal, just general producers in Nigeria currently exploiting to sell their movie into our kind of story, I think it would do a lot with. And more so, investing in promotion and marketing, right? People buy what they see, right? Regardless, in fact, people will buy it out of curiosity to just say, you know what, I want to just know, okay, I saw it on the billboard, I saw it on the TV, on the radio, I heard on radio, flyers, almost every restaurant that you walk through, you see their banners, those things cost money, but investing a lot of money in marketing and promotion of those contents goes a long way. So I generally adopting everything that sells any normal Nollywood movie, right?
Okay, Uya, do you have any thoughts regarding that? Okay.
Yeah.
I think since we're attempting to round up, I think this is a question I'm curious to know what you think. So, for queer people, I know you had mentioned something about how writing and how it's important for people to actually train people on the art of writing. What do you think? How do you think, or what would be your advice in a situation where you have a queer person who's interested in filmmaking and probably telling more queer stories, but I don't know where to go from there, or I don't know what to do exactly in this case. What would be your recommendations in this regard?
Okay. Should I
Yes.
go? Do you want to go?
Yeah, I would just say collaboration.
Yeah.
Just find people of
Yeah.
like minds. Find people that are also interested in telling stories. Find people that are better in their own field. If you are just a director and you need a cinematographer, find cinematographer that are willing to collaborate with you in telling the story. It can reduce a lot of costing. That is because costing is always like the fear of everybody. Once you hear the fee, and it just scares you to think if I can do it. But you can achieve pretty much anything with collaboration. So just social media has made everything easier now. Just reach out to people on social media. I want to tell this kind of story, this particular story, and I'm looking for people that would like to collaborate on it. And you'll be shocked at the kind of responses that you can get.
I agree. I completely agree with what Asurf has said, and I'm just going to add that. I mean, this is what I had to do. You keep telling the stories that they are paying you to tell, right? Until you can tell the stories that you actually want to tell, right? And until you can find a person who wants to collaborate with you and to create those stories. Because that's basically what I had to do. I spent years in this industry writing other stories, right? And putting heterosexual characters in front of my films while wishing that I could have more queer characters. But what did that do for me? That's let people know that I can do this work, at least. If not anything, right? If you see my other script, say, she sabi the work. So even if a person wants to collaborate with you, they need to see that you're able to do this work, right? It's not just, you don't just have a random dream. Oh, I have a story. You meet a lot of people who have stories. so yeah. So I think that's what they should do.
So I know we're wrapping up, but I'm going to sneak in one last question. What would be your ideal, if you had to pick like an ideal team project to work on right now? that, I'm getting.
I'm struggling to hear you, Frank.
I'm
I can't really hear you.
Network,
Yes, I
Okay,
can't really
is it
hear you. It's breaking, I think.
any good?
Try again. Yes, it's better now.
Okay, so I'm like, what would be your ideal queer team project to work on if you had, if it was in a similar climate and everything was okay and all good, what stories would you tell? What projects would you, what would be that project you would want to work on right now?
As you asked that question, I thought of like 10 things, 10 stories that I would like to tell. I think that right now for me, I would like to tell the story of an older lesbian who spent her youth dealing drugs or something. Like a proper complex character. An older lesbian who is settled in Nigeria, who has spent a lot of her life selling drugs, and now she has a lot of money, and she still has some kind of power. I just want to tell a character that's not good or moral, right? Because it's easy for oppressed groups to want to always like put these people, put us in a special kind of life. But I want to normalize it a bit more, right? Like, in fact, what would be ideal, perfectly ideal for me? It would not even, the word lesbian, the word queer would not even come up in the film. This woman would just be living as a normal person that she is with her wife while she has this business on the side. Nobody is ever going to say lesbian or queer or anything like that. This is just going to be a couple in love, and this is their life. I want to do a story like that where we don't have to say those words for it to mean anything.
Actually,
yes.
I would be something. Yeah, I think that wraps up our conversation. This has been a very, very insightful conversation, and I have been very privileged to be a part of it with this amazing filmmakers and storytellers who are doing such amazing. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, like I said, this has been a wonderful conversation, and I have been privileged to be a part of this conversation with some of the amazing, excellent filmmakers and storytellers who are doing such an amazing job. These conversations are a part of conversations with CINIDB, Global Institute funded online database and meeting platform, which connects and showcases film industry professionals in Africa and the diaspora. And Franklin Ugobude, very excited to be a part of this and moderate this competition. And yeah, I'll let the other guys sign up and we can say goodbye to you. I mean, you can tell them what to follow socials to keep up with your work.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much for having me, and of course for putting Frank and Asurf on this conversation. Frank is one of my favorite people to talk about film with, simply because he's not a filmmaker himself, but he has very strong opinions about film, and I just love to see it. So thank you, and thank you also, Asurf. Like, remember, working with you was such a dream. I have to say it again. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
for
much.
the opportunity.
You can follow me on Instagram. I think that's where I'm most active. Uyaiedu. Yeah.
Okay, so last words from Asurf.
Thank you so much, Franklin. Thank you for having this conversation. We hope to have more of this type of conversation to drive engagement on these topics. And I'm also reachable on Instagram. I am Asurf.
Okay, very well then. Thank you so much, everyone, for being a part of this conversation. And until next time, it's goodbye for now. Bye.
All right, bye. Thank you.
Bye, bye.
I hope you enjoy this wonderful conversation. Next month, I will have the pleasure to moderate another conversation on CINIDB that will be focused on the DOP. We will have as a participant Amath Niane from Senegal and Joël Akafou from Ivory Coast. The conversation will be in French. I'll see you next month.